I've had my fun, Mark. Now I'm finally ready to be a wife again. That was the text message I received from my wife of 12 years after she had been missing for 3 weeks. She didn't know I was standing in her lover's driveway. She didn't know I had already emptied the bank accounts. And she certainly didn't know that the locks on our front door had already been changed. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of how my wife tried to treat our marriage like a revolving door and how I made sure that door hit her on the way out. This isn't just a story about cheating. It is a clinical study in audacity and the absolute destruction of a woman's ego when she realizes her safety net has turned into a concrete floor. My name is Mark. For over a decade, I believed I was living the suburban dream. I am a software engineer by trade, a man of logic, data, and predictable outcomes. My wife, Sarah, was the creative spirit. She was a freelance interior designer, or so she claimed. Looking back, I realized her primary design project was the elaborate architecture of lies she built around our life. We met in college, and from the moment I saw her, I was hooked. She had this magnetic energy that seemed to light up every room. I was the steady anchor. She was the wind in the sails. Or at least, that's the metaphor I used to justify why I did 80% of the housework and paid 100% of the bills. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought it was solid. We had a beautiful home in the suburbs, 2 dogs, and a circle of friends who looked at us as this stable couple. But about 6 months ago, the atmosphere in our home began to shift. It wasn't a sudden explosion, it was a slow leak. Sarah started taking work retreats to find inspiration. She began guarding her phone like it contained the nuclear launch codes. When I asked her about it, she would laugh and call me insecure, using my own logic against me. "Mark, you're a man of science," she would say. "Where is your evidence? Why are you acting like a jealous child?" I wanted to believe her. I truly did. I told myself that the late-night texts were just demanding clients and the weekend trips were necessary for her career. But the data didn't add up. The credit card statements showed charges at high-end hotels in cities where she supposedly didn't have any projects. The mileage on her car was skyrocketing. And then, there was the smell. Every time she came home from a retreat, she smelled like a specific brand of expensive cologne, something musky and heavy, the polar opposite of the light, citrus scent I wore. I remember the night it all clicked. It was a Tuesday evening, raining heavily. Sarah was supposedly at a gallery opening downtown. I was sitting in my home office, the blue light of the monitor reflecting off my glasses. I decided to check our shared cloud storage to find a photo of our dog for a digital frame I was gifting my mother. That's when I saw it. A folder titled Project Echo. I thought it was work-related. I clicked it. Inside were hundreds of photos. Not of furniture or floor plans, but of Sarah. Sarah in places I didn't recognize. Sarah with a man I had never seen. A man who looked like a younger, more athletic version of everything I wasn't. They were in Tulum. They were in Aspen. They were in the very bed I had paid for while I was away on a business trip. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. I felt the air leave my lungs. Every "I love you" she had whispered over the last year felt like a poison needle. Every time she had kissed me goodbye before leaving for a client meeting, she was actually heading into the arms of this stranger. I sat there for hours, scrolling through the evidence of her double life. She wasn't just having an affair, she was living an entire secondary existence. She had spent our savings on him. She had given him the time and affection that belonged to our marriage. And the worst part? The dates on the photos. They started over 2 years ago. Instead of confronting her immediately, my analytical brain took over. I knew that if I exploded in rage, she would find a way to spin it. She was a master manipulator. I needed to be cold. I needed to be precise. I spent the next 3 weeks building a dossier. I hired a private investigator to track her movements. I discovered that her lover was a lifestyle coach named Julian, a man who specialized in empowering bored suburban wives while emptying their bank accounts. I watched through the PI's lens as they met at secluded parks and dimly lit bars. I watched them laugh at jokes I would never hear. I felt like a ghost in my own life. But while they were playing house, I was playing chess. I consulted with the best divorce attorney in the state. Because Sarah had been funneling marital assets into Julian's business, my lawyer informed me that I had a strong case for financial recoupment. The turning point came when Sarah announced she was going on her biggest retreat yet, a 3-week spiritual journey to clear her head. She looked me in the eye and told me she needed this time to become a better wife for me. The audacity was breathtaking. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and told her to have a wonderful time. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, the clock started. I didn't waste a second. I moved all the liquid assets into a protected account. I filed for divorce and had her served at the airport, though she didn't see the processor. He simply left the papers in her checked luggage so she would find them when she reached her destination. I packed every single one of her belongings, every dress, every shoe, every piece of jewelry I had bought her, and moved them into a high-security storage unit. I paid for 1 month of rent and left the key with her mother, along with a printed copy of Project Echo. During those 3 weeks, I went through a metamorphosis. The man who was a safe anchor died, and a man who valued his own worth was born. I spent time at the gym, I reconnected with friends she had isolated me from, and I prepared for the inevitable return of the predator. Then came the text. The 3 weeks were up. I assumed Julian had finally grown tired of her, or perhaps the money had run out. She sent the message that served as the title of this story. I've had my fun, Mark. Now I'm finally ready to be a wife again. She arrived at the house at 6 p.m. on a Friday. I wasn't there. I was parked down the street, watching through the doorbell camera. I watched as she tried her key. It didn't turn. She tried again, more frantically. She rang the bell. No answer. She tried the side door. Locked. She tried the garage code. Disabled. She called my phone. I let it ring. She called again. On the 3rd attempt, I answered. My voice was a flat line. Hello, Sarah. Mark. The locks aren't working. I'm outside and I'm exhausted. Can you come let me in? I'm afraid I can't do that, Sarah, I said calmly. The house is no longer your residence. I've sold your share of the equity to a holding company I control. Your things are at the storage facility on 4th Street. Your mother has the key. She also has the photos from Project Echo. There was a long, haunting silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, sharp, jagged gasps. What are you talking about? Mark, stop playing. This isn't funny. It's not a joke. It's a divorce. You said you were ready to be a wife again. The problem is, I'm no longer interested in being a husband. Not to you. Not ever again. She began to scream. She screamed about her rights, about the years she gave me, about how I was a monster for doing this to her. She didn't realize that her screaming was being recorded by the neighbors' cameras. She didn't realize that Julian was already being investigated for fraud based on the evidence I provided to the authorities regarding the business transfers. In the months that followed, Sarah tried everything to get back into my life. She tried the remorse angle, sending long emails about how Julian had brainwashed her. She tried the victim angle, claiming I had financially abused her by moving the money. But the law was on my side. The Project Echo folder was the smoking gun. It proved systemic dissipation of marital assets and a level of premeditated betrayal that the court found abhorrent. She ended up in a small apartment, working a retail job she hated, while Julian disappeared to find his next mark. Her friends, the ones who knew what she was doing and encouraged it, vanished the moment she was no longer the rich wife who could host parties. I, on the other hand, found peace. I didn't jump into another relationship. I spent a year traveling. Actually traveling, not retreating. I learned that my value wasn't tied to how much I could provide for someone who didn't respect me. Sarah thought she could go out and have her fun and then return to the security I provided whenever she felt like it. She thought I was a permanent fixture, a piece of furniture that would always be there. She learned the hard way that a husband is a partner, not a safety net. If you're going through something similar, remember, you don't have to be the anchor for someone who wants to sail away. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is let them go, and then change the locks on the harbor. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story of justice and self-respect, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more dramatic Reddit stories. And tell me in the comments,